Welcome to episode 44 of Discourse in Magic. This is the start of a new month, February, and of course, with a new month comes a new month theme. And the theme of the month this month is the effect. A couple months ago, it was about crafting your show, and now we're sort of zooming in and talking about the effect in the show. So, for those of you that are following the podcast very closely, you'll know that this episode is with James Harrison. And James Harrison is on this episode because he's the winner of last month's contest. So it's a very, very fun episode. So I thought that I would mention that. And speaking of contests, this month we're doing something different. It's not a contest, but it is a challenge. We're calling it the 7-Day Masterpiece Challenge. And all you have to do is go to discoursinmagic.com/masterpiece any day before February 15th. And here's what it is. For 7 days from February 15th on, we are going to send you an email to help you turn a trick of yours into a masterpiece. Doesn't need to be an original trick, just needs to be any effect that you do. We're going to turn it into a masterpiece. We're going to really speed up that process of honing it. So every day for 7 days, we're going to send you an email with a small, tiny task of something to do, something along the lines of scripting or recording yourself or coming up with some ideas or things like that to help perfect a trick and make a trick your own. So discoursinmagic.com/masterpiece any day before February 15th, because on the 15th it starts, and it'll be cool to have a whole bunch of people go through this thing together. So big thank you already for doing it, and without further ado, here is the episode.
Hello everybody, welcome to episode 44 of Discourse in Magic. My name is Tyler.
My name is Jonah.
It is a very exciting new month here at Discourse in Magic, and a very exciting new episode because we're doing something for the first time. We're having our first ever fan guest. Is that the way to? I mean, you're a magician.
Yeah, I'm fine with
He won a contest. We did a contest. It was wildly successful. There was tons of entries. It was a miracle that we got such a close guy to us to win it. So
that's true.
But we are here with the one and only James Harrison. James, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Very excited to have you. And for the people that don't know, we have, of course, known you for a little while. It's not, you didn't find us because of the podcast or anything like that. We are, I like to say Toronto Magic friends, even though I don't live in Toronto, you don't live in Toronto, only he lives in Toronto.
I'm technically North York.
Oh, now you know that's a Toronto answer. So I'm actually in North York.
Yeah.
It's like not really Toronto. I'm just
but like the problem is if I say I live in Toronto to someone who lives in like the annex, they're like, where? And I'm like, Bathurst and Wilson, and they're like, that's North York. Get out of here.
Yeah,
come downtown.
But here's the funny thing: the rest of the world says you're from Toronto.
Yeah, right. They think I'm from Toronto, you're from Toronto.
Yeah.
If you're from Ontario, you're from Toronto to the rest of the world.
Much.
Yeah.
Unless you're in India, in which case you say I'm from Toronto, and they're like, that's a small town near Brampton? I'm not sure. What is that? I don't know what that is.
So, before we dive into the theme of the month, which we will get into, let's talk a little bit about what the contest was, sort of, and what has come out of it. So, the contest was a Magic New Year's resolution contest. And it's just been awesome because I know for me personally, since I've said it, I've been working towards what I said was what my goal was, which was scripting. And I've been doing so much work on scripting unsuccessfully, but more work than I've ever done on it before because I'm like, hey, the world knows about it.
That's incredible.
So,
I forgot what my resolution was.
Good. That's good. That's good.
That's where I'm at.
So first of all, big thank you for sending in Magic New Year's resolution. I know it's like obviously a lot to like share your goals publicly.
Well, Facebook and Twitter and all the rest of it, I'm not opposed to sharing whatever's going off the top of my mind anyway. I actually got more worried because more people started posting those videos when I did it. And I'm like, oh,
That's
crud.
true.
No, I'm trying to win this thing and more people are entering because of this. Damn it.
So has it had any effect on what you've been doing since? I mean, it's been a month, basically.
Well, the things that I mentioned in the New Year's resolution, I kind of already had in
place
before New Year's and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but trying to work on a new. I guess you'd almost call it like a play.
Yeah.
We were talking about before you came here, Jonah, about this performance that I'm wanting to do, and I have no real venue to do it in.
Right.
But I just want to do it. Like, I'm going to do it for one show, and then that's it. And then I got to find out where this show's going to live and grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's more interesting, because I have shows.
You have
like,
material.
I have material. I have what I want.
You're a professional magician, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
that's what you do to get by.
So I'm good that way, but this is just a nice challenge of trying to figure out, okay, here's a show that I want to do. Who's going to see this?
Right.
Where am I going to take this? Am I going to just do it once and then put it on the shelf and never do it again? Am I going to try and shoehorn this into a corporate show? Like, I don't think it'll fit. No matter how much I try and like put warm fuzzies on it.
Yeah.
But that's part of the process, is trying to figure out an audience for it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think there's always this battle as an artist of the what I want to create and what people actually want, or like what I want to create and who the audience is that might want this, right? Mm-hmm. So it's always something, it's always this trade-off to like, I really want to put on this new show, but I don't really know where it fits, and then you have to play around and see if you can find either a place or a group of people or something that you can start putting it out there.
I think that has been every artist's issue.
Yeah.
Magic tends to be the only one where we worry about our show going for a corporate audience or at the restaurant or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you see, dancers, they're working on a new piece. They don't think about, when am I going to do this? They have their venues.
Right.
People that paint don't worry about, is this going to offend anybody? They just do it. And
well, it's the difference between thriving artists and not thriving. You know what I mean? Like the painter who's painting and he's like this isn't going to do anything. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, like, if you're in it to make a living, then yes, there's clearly a lot of compromises you have to do. Mm-hmm. But now that I'm at the point where I'm, I have a roof over my head and there's food on my plate.
You can be selective.
Now, well, not so much selective. I still have to do those shows. Mm-hmm. But now I want to let the artist come out. I want to do the shows I want to do as opposed to shows I have to do. And I still have to do those shows. It's not like I'm going to get away. It's like, now that I've gotten to that point, I can stop doing it.
Yeah, I'm above restaurant magic now.
Or it's like, dude, I still do kids' parties.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a pickpocket magician who also loves doing bazaar magic and sideshow stuff. Yeah. I'm still doing kids shows because I want to make a living because I love magic.
He's in the kids.
Yeah.
It's there, man. Might as well do it. But that's that part of the compromise, right? Just because, like, that was the funny thing with a lot of the magicians in Toronto. I don't want to name names because they are friends of mine and they're respected. But they had this idea that, no, I'm above doing kids shows. No, I'm above doing this kind of stuff. And it's like, dude, you're a magician. Find the shows you can do. You're not going to find every choice gig and survive doing this. Now, if you got a job, a full-time job, now, of course you can be choosy. But if you're not, well, guess what? You're going to do Little Billy's birthday party show. You're going to do the show that they want and use that money So you can go and do the ones you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
But there is this mentality that I know a lot of magicians. I mean, I think the approach might not be like I'm better than a kids show, but there might be this thought where you could like escape the world of doing kids magic. You know, you might have to, like you're saying, you know, pay your dues or pay your bills, you know, and do those kids shows so you can invest in what it is that you want. But hopefully the guy that makes it in the corporate market is getting hired all over the place. He can then say to those kids shows like, sorry, like I'm being paid so much to go on stage for an hour, like I just, this just isn't in the works for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I obviously agree, you know, there's a lot of I want to say the word preppiness, but what I mean is this like better than thou, you know, like I won't do kids shows, you will do it.
Bougie.
Exactly. But I also think that like that people should work towards things, and whether it means not doing some gigs or doing specific gigs, I think it's all good.
Yeah, like I see what you're saying, and like the idea is like if you wanted only do magic full time, sometimes you got to bite the bullet and do the show you don't want to do. But at the same time, like that's just like a survival tactic. Like if you can't pick and choose your job when you're unemployed. When you're starving, it's like, yeah, I'll work at McDonald's, yeah, I'll deliver papers, I'll do whatever the hell I need to do to get by. And the same can be said for magic. But like if I was a musician and I hate playing jazz, I might not take a gig at a jazz club. You know what I mean? Like I'll play my rock shows.
well, there was a I'm blanking on the guy's name, but he was a musician, and he talked about following your dreams. That everyone should follow their dreams. However, you still have to survive in this world. So if that means that for you to follow your dream, you have to do this, not demeaning, but just job you don't want to do, then that's the price you pay for wanting to do something you love.
Right.
For sure.
So I want to be a full-time magician. I am. I'm a full-time magician because I do the shows that I get asked to do. Not because I want to, not because I have to. It's just part of the bigger package. So yes, do I wish that I'd never have to do another kids show? Sometimes. Sometimes I wish I could just get hired to do the shows I want to do, like the Vegas act that I do for corporate shows, the close-up magic walk around. Oh my gosh, I love doing that. But I'm not there yet. So in effect, I guess I'm paying my dues doing the children's party, but it's still magic.
Right.
And that's where I take solace. Is that, yes, I know this isn't the magic I want to do, but it's still magic. So it's magic
You're still luckier than the guy who's flipping patties.
in a sense, yeah.
I mean, unless that's what he
Unless
wanted to
he
do.
wants to
Thank you.
flip patties.
I was
Right.
going to say that. If he wants to flip those patties, there are guys that work at the barista.
And they love it.
Oh
They
my
love
gosh,
being
yeah.
there. But they're at the coffee shop to support their art.
Right.
Yeah.
But they still they accept that as the whole package, because they know that maybe in the back of their mind they don't think they'll ever be that good to just survive off their art. But they've come to accept that.
And they found a way to let, like you just said, you know, the dream that they're having actually take effect. There's this idea from, I think I've mentioned him on the podcast before, but Gary Vaynerchuk. Do you know the name?
I don't.
So he's a very vocal entrepreneur. And one of the things he says, he goes, what do? What advice do you give to the kid who's a small, tiny kid who's not going to grow very tall, who loves basketball and loves the NBA? Do you tell him, sorry, no dice? Or what do you tell him? His answer was, you might want to be honest with him and tell him that he's not going to make it, or probably that it might be a tough bet, but you should let him know that NBA coaches, they also make money. NBA writers, they also make money. They can thrive. Refs,
They got jobs too. They work just very closely with NBA players, offensive coaches, defensive like there's so many ways that you can have what you want. The dream of working in basketball with basketball in the NBA, you can have so many versions of that dream. Just not the little tiny slice, that might be playing. That just might not be in the book. So it might be the same thing for Magic, where it's like we are so lucky to be able to say that we do Magic. But sometimes I'm hired for an event, and the parents go to the other room, and I realize for a couple minutes I'm a babysitter. and that's just what it is, For the other 95% I get to be a magician. I'm still a magician, just for a little bit of time I'm also a babysitter. And I think that's part of it. I think it's the trade-off of being able to do what you love.
Yeah, and it's feeling those lows that make you enjoy the highs as well. Because, man, if everything makes you feel great, then it's just going to be the same old. Like that piece that makes you feel so good, if that's all you're doing is making yourself feel good, if you don't have those lows, then how are you going to remember what those highs are?
For sure.
So yeah, I've done crappy gigs.
For sure.
I knew I was stepping into a crappy gig. I got hired to do walk around at a grocery store grand opening. Yay! People are trying to buy groceries and they're wanting me to walk up and entertain them.
Hi, can you stop shopping?
Yeah.
Want to see a trick?
Yeah. Allow me to show you this amazing, ambitious card trick while you're trying to buy fish for dinner tonight. No. It's worth it.
Hold on.
You won't be able to cook your dinner. You're just going to be thinking about this moment.
Exactly. But you get those gigs and you're like, you know what? I'd rather be doing that than a job that forces me. It's like, well, this is paying the bills, but I hate it.
Exactly.
It sucks. I hate my coworkers. All they do is talk about stuff that I don't want to talk about. But I have to sit there and grin and bear it because this guy has influence over the boss. Ugh.
Yeah.
Just
for sure, we do better
man,
than that.
I'd rather put up with Little Billy's birthday party. You know what?
Yeah,
for sure.
I got him for an hour. That's fine. I can be happy for anybody for an hour.
Yeah, an hour.
That's such a good comment because I've worked pretty much exclusively customer service positions in my outside of Magic career, and sometimes I get through a day and I'm like, I want to cry because I can't wake up at 6 a.m. to go be polite to people for 9 hours again. Yeah. I can't do it. I hate the customers. I hate working here, but you have to because I needed money. But I've never turned down a birthday party, but I've also never pursued children's Magic. I'm because I don't want to do it. But I'm I could do it for an hour, way more than I can do it for 9 hours and make less money.
Oh, I've always been asked. I've been told that many times when I do a birthday party show. It's like, wow, it was amazing how patient you were with those kids. They were going nuts. And I'm like, and I usually do it and make sure that no one's really around with this one person. I just go, yeah, but I give them back after an hour. I can get them. It's the equivalent of shaking the soda can and handing it back to the parents. Mm-hmm. I get to walk away before they open it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not to say that I'm just trying to rile up their kids. Just here, have fun.
Your job is to entertain them for an hour.
Yeah, so I do.
Right. Yeah.
And then I get to go sit in my car and go, I'm done. I'm gonna go home, put the money in the bank, go get the next gig. But then I get to enjoy the rest of my day.
That's
right.
Really good point.
So for all those guys that want to kind of poo-poo, I know professional magicians that poo-poo restaurant work.
I think restaurant work's amazing.
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun.
Yeah, it's the dream.
But to some magicians, they don't like it. Roberto Joby talks about it. He thinks it's like one of the lower parts of magic. That's fine if he feels that way, but the skills you learn, oh my gosh, not even on a magic level, just how to converse with people. How to find a way to break that bubble.
Yeah.
As my father put it when I got married, because before I got into magic, I wouldn't say much. As my father put it, he wouldn't say shit if his mouth was full of it. Thanks, Dad. But at my wedding shower turned into a roast because that's how my family is. They're trying to throw barbs at me and I'm trying to defend myself. My dad says, like, you never would have done that. He wouldn't have stand in front of everybody and just said what was on his mind and said the things that he said and all the rest of it. It's like, I learned that from doing restaurant magic, walking up to people, random strangers, learning to insert myself into the conversation with complete strangers, and in those 30 seconds, minute, have them accept the fact that I'm a total stranger standing at their table. It's an art. It's a skill that I think is invaluable. To the point where I talk to random strangers at the store that my wife hates. It's like I'll overhear a conversation and then I'll interject myself into it. Have a very poignant point or get something to make them laugh. And they just suddenly realize they're talking to a stranger.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, that's a great point. Who are you again?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
just over there.
something I've noticed about you. It's actually this was years ago. Can't remember how old I was, but we were both at the Den and just hanging out, and this girl walks in with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend's a magician buying stuff, and she's just there, and you go, "That's a really nice hat," and she goes, "Okay, thanks, all right," and walks away, and I was like, "What was that about? And what'd you say?" She's like, "Oh, I just said she had a nice hat." And I was like, "Why was she so uncomfortable?" And he's like, "Strangers, you said strangers hate it when you compliment them. Like, they fucking hate it when you say nice things about them randomly out of the blue. It's super upsetting for some reason."
They don't understand it. It's like, you're a random stranger. Why are you saying something nice?
Yeah.
Well, because it looks nice.
Yeah. It's like,
Being honest, I'm not trying
your
to
hat.
get anything out of it. I'm just trying to legitimately
It's like,
tell you.
I know your boyfriend's right there.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't lose my wedding ring. I had lost weight, and when I was washing my hands, it popped off.
You mentioned being married, and I was like, I knew you were married and had kids, but I was like, you don't wear a ring. Interesting choice. Want to know why? Is it on a necklace? What's happening?
No, I lost the ring, and I haven't bought one since. My wife's like, no, it's fine. I know where you live. And it's like, it's true, so I gotta fall asleep at some point.
So let's talk about the theme of the month. Last month was Friends, Fans, and Followers, and the month before that was Crafting a Show.
Let's hope so.
I hope that those two things are right, but I think they are. And this month is about sort of the micro version of the macro of crafting a show. So now it's down to the effect. So we're trying to get a little bit more precise about, I don't want to say creating your own effect, because it makes it seem like there's a it makes it seem like it's necessary to create your own effect, but making something of your own that's special. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a wildly important topic because so many magicians are just doing other people's trick with other people's performance.
Right.
And I think you can change one, you can change both, you can change either, you can't change none.
I agree with you in the aspect of, if I am a performing magician, I'm wanting to do the show for like my clients or my peers, that kind of stuff. But for people that are hobbyists or people that just want to enjoy a toy, why do they need to change it?
Of course it has to do with purpose, right?
Right.
Like,
so if not to deviate from what we're trying to achieve with this topic, it's just that there's so many arguments online about changing stuff to make it your own and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, you don't have to if you're not displaying it for the world, so to speak. You're just showing it to your buddies and you're just showing a trick.
Yeah, I like the idea of, like, when you see someone doing it the way the instructions say or the way the guy at the magic shop does it, and they go, oh, he's not making it his own, he's not doing real magic, it's not, it's like, doing that sort of performance is not what he was intending to do from day one. He was never like, I'm going to find tricks and make them my own. He was like, the guy at the magic shop said these words in this order and I paid $17 so I could do it.
Yep.
Like, that's what I wanted.
It's the same with any other art.
Yeah.
If the reason why the guy picked up the guitar was because he wanted to do a Nirvana cover, it had nothing with him wanting to make his own music.
Yeah.
It's like he heard something, I want to be able to do that too.
Yeah, that's exactly my brother. That's his whole thing. He's like, I have no interest in writing music. I have no interest in like being a guitar player. He's like,
Yeah.
I want to be a catalog. I just want to be a list of songs that I know how to play.
My wife's aunt, you can put anything in front of her, and she can trace it. Like just
That's awesome.
draw it right out. She has no interest in creating her own thing. You show her pictures from like Gundam. She almost facsimile. But she's not creating anything there. She's just copying. But she loves doing it. So to tell her that what she's doing is not creative, or not, is less than.
Right.
Something
Or that
is-
it's wrong.
Thank
That
you.
it's wrong.
That it's
That
wrong.
it's the
It's-
incorrect
and
way
that's-
of doing
that's-
something.
a big thing that Magic likes to do because you bought Rubicon and you're doing it the exact same way that Gregory Wilson is showing it on the video, and somehow that's wrong. And I don't think it's wrong unless you are trying to say that this is yours. And the way you say that it's yours is that you are getting hired to do that trick. So I don't think that monetary has to be the reason why you change it. But if you're trying to make it your own, then you have to change it. There's
Right.
you have to make it fit you. To go on the whole Rubik's Cube sort of thing as the example, I'm a Bazaar and Pickpocket. Like Bazaar Magic and Pickpocket. Why the hell would I be doing a Rubik's Cube trick? So I sat down. I wanted to learn it. That was the first thing. It was a toy. I wanted to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube. That was
Right.
just, I needed to know how. Steve Brundage put his thing out. I did that and all the rest of it. So I'm like, okay, I want to learn how to do this. Am I ever going to use it? I have no idea.
Right.
So I sat down and said, why would a guy learn to solve this if he wasn't just doing it to prove that he could? And it took me a while. I put it down, played with it, put it aside, did other things, all the rest of it. And then one day it just popped up to me and it's like, this is an exercise for someone who needs to have dexterous fingers. And what job do you need more dexterous fingers than stealing things from other people? So now I have a premise. But that took me years to get to that point. I learned Steve Brundage thing as soon as it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Was that last year or the year before?
Something like that, a year and a half ago. Or
Yeah.
something.
I didn't come up with that premise for the Rubik's Cube till like last year. Like just in December.
Right.
And I was just fiddling with it and all the rest of it. So I think what we do subconsciously is we put a time limit on when we should
Give up.
not so much give up, but when you should have it, make it your own. Because you look at something and you're like, oh, I should have this, make this my own, by next year or the year or 6 months or whatever, when I'm going to do my next performance or whatever, I got to do these things. It's like, man, learn the trick. For crying out loud.
And that's been my approach recently, is that things become your own. You earn the uniqueness of an effect. You don't assign it, right? You don't go, what would make this my own if I did it like this instead of like that. Done. Now I'm going to do it. It's not like that. It's like, to me it happens like over the course of hundreds of iterations of performances of it. And then one thing happens and you go, what if I do that every time?
Yeah.
What if I do that? And then it's your own. And I might be blind because I know that my magic creative process happens at the moment of performing. And I know a lot of other people, their magic, like when they're really creative, that happens when they're like finger flicking like over their bed like at 2 o'clock in the morning. Other people get it because they've written out such a clever script that they're able to like put in the beats. For me, I know all of my or most of my magic self-discovery occurs while I'm performing. Yeah. So I allow myself to perform other people's effects. I mean, I try my best to personalize it, but it doesn't necessarily mean make it my own. You know, there's only so many different things you can say about Rubicon. There's only so many different presentations there are for doing exactly one thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, it does a thing, but being different for the sake of being different provides no benefit, but there's no real point, I think, to just changing it for the sake of changing it.
Exactly. Changing it for the sake of changing it is kind of pointless because you're just doing that to self-satisfy.
Yeah.
Your peers are
Exactly.
telling
Satisfy the magic
Yeah.
community.
Whereas, how many professionals do Ambitious Card as
All of them.
as a trick where it's gambling? It's like, oh, if I need that card, it comes up to the top. How many? Take a different context of art, like comedians. You know how many comedians are going to be doing Donald Trump jokes?
Right.
Yeah, every single one.
But they're going to have their own take on it. They're going to take different pieces of.
But that's so different. Multiple
How?
magicians having a different take on Donald Trump versus everyone putting the goddamn card in the goddamn middle of the deck and having it come back to the top and having different ways of doing that. Do you know what I mean?
No,
No,
I don't
because
think so.
Donald Trump is objectively Donald Trump, whereas that effect is objectively that effect. It's
Yeah.
the framing in which you use the
How are you
facts,
dressing?
use the reality.
Okay, so I agree in the sense that it's like one thing that's standard and something else changing it. But I
Right.
think the drasticness of difference between Donald Trump, who's a human person making decisions every day running a country, versus the insertion of a card in the middle of the deck, one provides a lot of room for creativity and one provides less, right?
Oh, of course, yeah.
But
No,
the reason why
but he's saying don't be different for the don't be like I will never make a Donald Trump joke because everyone's doing it. Fuck that, I'm a rebel. That's silly.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So to say that I'll never do the Ambitious Card trick when you do card tricks is silly in its own right. You're cutting yourself off from something that is an amazing trick that you should perform for your audiences. So to go with that whole premise of the effect, well, who are you? Who are you, the person that's performing for these people? Are you the conjurer that's able to make this thing happen magically? Are you the cheat? Are you the mischievous imp that makes these things happen because you want to see the reactions of people? Like there's so many different presentations. Like I'm a con man and a pickpocket and a weird guy. So for me to cheat at cards makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to do the Ambitious Card, yeah, I'm bringing the card up because I want to cheat at cards. But there's a lot of guys that do the Ambitious Card because they cheat at cards. So how do I make it my own? Because I'm me. I bring in what I would say, what I would do. I make mention of the fact that if you get caught with these tricks, like if you did this in a show or like when you're with your friends, they might beat you up, kick you out. If you do this next one, they won't find your body for a couple days. That's coming from a martial art background, a man who likes horror movies. Like, that happens.
Yeah.
But I don't think, not to put it against you guys, but I don't think you're going to mention that in an Ambitious Card routine because that's not your background. Like,
of course not.
I've helped throw people out of games.
Right.
Right.
So I know. But for you guys, it's a different angle for if you wanted, even if you wanted to do card cheating for that. Like there's, the limitation doesn't affect the creative process of trying to make it your own. Jamie and Swiss tried to stay away from cards because all the magicians were doing card tricks. Mm-hmm. So you did coin tricks, you did mind reading, you did a whole bunch of different things. And then it eventually came to him that it's like, there's a plethora of effects that can happen here. Why am I limiting myself?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so to get back to the whole Ambitious Cards, like, Di Vernon made that trick essentially to fool Houdini. That's where it stemmed from, is that whole, like, I put it in the second spot, do the double lift, and spoilers, and then show that it's a single card. that's essentially where Ambitious Card has come from. So you can be a historian with that. There's all these different premises of just bringing the card to the top. And I don't think that, just changing the fact that it's magnets, or the fact that, every magician makes the card go to the top. It's like, well, yeah, you have all these different premises, albeit limited, so work with those. Work with what you got.
I just thought of a really fun premise.
So, but
this is gonna make me sound like a monster, so I have to preface it. I want to do a whole show about me having disabilities because I have learning disabilities. So having the disabled card, which just always comes last, to me is such a funny. Like he tries his hardest and he studies, but he sucks. This is the way it is. The system doesn't work anyway.
One of the things that I like that you highlighted, which has come up before, but mostly in the context of a show, but I think it's really important, effect to effect, is instead of trying to come up with a presentation that is just suitable for the effect, it also needs to be suitable for you, right? Mm-hmm. And that has such a, in the discussion of the effect, which is obviously not a micro issue, but it is compared to the idea of a show, it's interesting that you do have to take a step back as to, does this affect, like you said, you're like, does it make sense for me to even have a Rubik's Cube on the stage?
Yeah.
Does this even make sense? And I think that weighs in so much when you're performing. Even just close-up as an example, and close-up for Friends as a really good example. When you take your cards out of your pocket, you've already set the stage by having cards, right? Yeah. So it's just that. You're not performing for real people. Obviously, your friends are real people. You're not performing for. You're not being hired or anything like that. Already, the props that you're using, it gives people all this information. My favorite line in 40-Year-Old Virgin is when Steve Carell reaches behind the girl's ear and he pulls out a giant coin. And then he reaches behind her ear again and he pulls out a rubber ear. And she looks up at him with a flat, disappointed face and she goes, "You mean to tell me you walk around everywhere with a giant coin and a rubber ear in your pocket?" And I always thought that was so... That's a moment that affected me as a magician for so long. Because I was like...
It used to. Now it doesn't.
I would never walk around with a giant coin or an ear in my pocket because of that.
No, but when people ask me that question now, I go, fuck yeah. You know what I mean? Not that they ask me that specific question, but I mean, did you, is that...
People say, do you have cards with you? I'm like, yeah.
I went that extra mile. Okay, cards is a different example, but I mean,
And just to show my OCD, it wasn't the girl that he did it to that said it. It was the older sister.
Oh, right.
The girl that he did it to...
Oh, she liked it.
She loved it.
Right.
And then the teenager girl who's angsty and emo decided to pop the bubble by saying... So you're a grown adult that walks around with that stuff. Sorry to be OCD on that.
I haven't seen it in a while, but it's...
Yeah, I have a brain for useless information on when it comes to that kind of stuff. So
I'm like that too a lot, where someone will say something and it'll be like, "You want to know an interesting little tidbit?" And they're like, not really, but I can't get out of this situation now. Pretty and I'm like, no, you can't, because I have to say it.
I have to tell you
this. And you have to hear it.
Yeah, because this is how I remember it, and my brain is like a steel trap. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out.
Yeah.
So you got to hear this. And so that's when you mentioned that thing. But
I mentioned in the sense of things being out of place, whether it be props or whether it be...
Right.
Yeah, I like that now, though. I used to hate it because people would be like, "This is weird," but my problem was I would walk... I mean, I don't know why I'm using the visual aid for the podcast, but I'd walk up and be like, "Hi, I'm a magician, do you want to see something?" And they're like, "This fucker has cards. He brought cards. That's weird." But what I like to do now is talk to somebody, and we're talking, and they're like, what do you do? What's your thing? And I'm like, "I'm a magician." And they're like, "No, you're not." And I'm like, "Show me something." I'm like, "Okay." And then when I pull out a deck of cards, they go, "He's a fucking magician! He's a magician! It's real! It's happening!" And they get excited. They're like, "Oh, he's gonna have stuff!" And it's not weird,
Well, no, it's not weird for a magician to have these props because he's a goddamn magician. Of course he's gonna have these weird things.
Yeah.
He's weird to begin with. He's doing magic tricks. So if he has to go get something weird to make this effect, well, damn it, he's got to go get that thing. So like, the real fun thing for me right now is the Aikido box.
Okay.
Mhm.
How many guys do you know that do the Aikido box and then you just like, yeah, well, I just do it for me.
Yeah, everyone I know that does the Aikido box is like, I do it for video and I do it for me. That's it.
Because they don't go stroller magic with that or anything like that. But to be fair, that's a magic prop.
Oh,
But who cares? You're a magician anyway. Why wouldn't you have that prop?
Mhm.
Now, obviously, it's not like the box with the Asian letters or calligraphy over it, or the 1950s dragon on the circled square. But damn it, man! Like everything you pull out of your pocket is a prop, no matter how natural looking it is.
Yeah.
So they're gonna expect you to pull something weird out. Why not? So take advantage of that and do the trick that you want to do. Like I'm learning to do an Aikido box routine that's in the hands.
Great.
And I see from Jonah's face he's already glazed over because it's like, oh God, it's an Aikido box. But I look at it this way. It's like, what is this prop? This is a prop that is made of solid brass. It holds coins. And everyone's like, oh, well, why would you have that? Because I want it.
Because I'm a magician.
I'm a magician.
Coin magic.
I'm doing a trick for you. I need this thing for you to see this effect. So why wouldn't I carry this to show you this thing? This is cool. So let me show it to you. As opposed to like the same response of like he pulled out a deck of cards. Oh God, he's a magician.
Mm.
Well, shit, man. I'm a magician. Of course I'm going to have cards on me.
Yeah. People always act surprised. They're like, wow, you actually have cards too. And I'm like, well, I just told you.
Yeah, but
I just explained it.
maybe you're going to be that weird guy that is like, I only do impromptu magic, so I use whatever's on the table.
Yeah.
But so some of me says like, you have permission to have whatever you want in your pockets as a human being and as a magician, right?
To an extent.
Yeah. So like, and I think that's true. But I also think, Tyler and I were both knocked off our socks watching Chris
Me?
Ramsey.
Never mind.
Watching
Alright, fine.
Chris Ramsey and Eric Leclerc go off on strangers at a bar with what was around them. Go off.
Yeah.
And I don't...
But I have... Sorry, finish your thought.
All I'm going to say is
Finish your
I
thought.
don't think that they would have gotten those same responses if they weren't doing it with a straw, da-da-da, here it is, bomb, there it goes. I don't think if they would have pulled out cards in their pocket or a box or this or whatever, it would have been lost.
It's different. It's very different, though.
It's very different impromptu for people that aren't paying you versus...
I agree, but for a different reason. I agree because that's not what Chris Ramsey and Eric Leclerc like to do. Eric Leclerc likes to look around and see, this is what I got to work with, let's use this. Same with Chris. Chris brought out cards, did he not?
No.
Not in the story that I'm talking
Okay.
about, not in the day that I'm talking
But
about.
that's the kind of stuff that Chris likes, right? Like he likes impromptu stuff. It's like, oh, let's use this because I've got this catalog
yeah.
in the back of my mind of how to use this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I always find it hilarious how some people find it annoying when you say it's jazz magic. That's not real jazz magic because you have this category of stuff. It's like, well,
Like, that's how jazz works.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have to have
Every
this-
jazz drummer just was like, all right.
They've never learned anything, and they
yeah,
just...
exactly. It's the same with when you watch Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Same, I was just going to say improv.
Improv is the exact same thing. You have this list of tools that you're
Yeah.
going to use to make this
Freestyle rapping. We can go endlessly. Yeah. Let's do it. Painting. All right, sorry.
But so you can't like look at that stuff and be like, oh well, it's not real because of this or whatever. But for Eric and Chris, those things work for them.
Yeah, and the thing for me is like, I don't think Eric or Chris was like, they walked up and were like, I am a magician about to show you magic. They were like, my name is Eric. Can I see your straw? Where'd it go? Oh my god, it's in my, oh my god, oh my god, oh, what's happening? That, when I'm pulling stuff out and I have a close-up mat and I'm doing all these weird things, that's when I'm a magician doing my magic as a magician. And when I'm doing impromptu stuff, that's when I'm Tyler who knows magic. That's when I'm a witch.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's not when I'm like, alright, you want to see something? I'll do a little show for you. And they're like, whoa, you have stuff? I'm like, not only do I have cards, I'm pulling stuff that doesn't fit in my pockets out of my pockets, and like all this shit's happening. That's when I'm a magician doing magic as a magician. But when it's like, oh, you know him? He's a magician. Really?
Can you show us something cool?
Yeah, and I'll be like, oh yeah, let me see your ring. Boom, it's gone. It's on this finger. And they're like, oh, alright.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the whole different experience, because like, it's still magic for them. They're still impressed. They're still like, whoa, what is that? But that's just a moment with me, not with my performing character. Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense.
Sure. And there's obviously a huge difference between if you're being hired to be a magician and if you're just being a human person, right?
Yeah.
But I think that when you're hired, all bets are off.
Yes.
All bets are off. All bets are off when you're hired. There's a naked magician. Now, of course, they hired him knowing he was a naked magician. It'd be very weird if you hired a pickpocket and he came as a naked magician.
Where do I keep my stuff?
But
by the end of the show, I'll be dressed.
Yeah,
I think
that would be a good premise, actually.
Yeah,
Holy cow!
Just
adding
slowly
more
putting
clothing.
shit on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think as a performer, as long as they know what they're booking you for, you don't really need to worry about being like impromptu or anything like that. But I think that as an impromptu magician, there's definitely judgments when you like pull out the cards or when you
totally. If my goal is to do impromptu magic, I can't bring a deck of cards.
You can't bring a deck of cards. You can't bring out the Aikido box. You can't bring out cups and balls. You can't bring out that weird little thing that holds the prediction right there and all the rest of it. And that makes sense. But like you said, if you were being hired to do something, then
you can do anything
to an extent,
of course,
because you got to keep it civil.
Yeah.
But when you're being hired to do something, it's like, well, these are your tools. When I hire a painter to paint my house, I don't expect them to find the paint around my house.
For sure.
It's like, I need my house to be blue. Well, I've got mud, I've got grass. I don't know what's blue around here, so I'm going to try and see if I can make this happen anyway. There's a great thing about that with magic for like, hey, you know what? We're hanging out at the bar. I want to do something cool. Let's do this. But how many years did Eric and Chris put into practicing that to make it look fluid and natural? That's the behind the scenes that you don't get to see. But they have to get to that point. So if you gotten to that point with whatever prop you have, pulling it out impromptu looks like you're the hacky magician.
Right.
But if it's like, hey, I'm doing a show, here's my show, then man, I want to see the cool props. I want to see the Bond gadgets that make you awesome. You know the guy. Come on, let's do this.
Yeah.
Like there's.
You know the guy.
You know the guy.
Yeah,
it's so good.
You're the guy. Like you're the guy that has the access to this stuff. So I want to.
And
I
also,
see
like,
this.
we should, although this is not exactly related to showing them the props, but we should be doubling down on the fantastical parts that are associated to magic. That's what interests people. Do you know what I mean? So, like, the things like just for example of what you're doing, like being a con man, cheating, being a pickpocket, tricking people in a more elaborate way, schemes, like things that interest people about magic. People are not interested about magnets.
Or that oil is heavier than water.
That's my favorite example. That's my favorite example of that sort of thing, because oil, oil and water, the premise of oil being heavier than water or lighter, whatever the heck, heavier, I guess.
No.
Oil is heavier than water.
For sure heavier.
Right, less dense.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't edit that out.
Yeah.
We'll edit out all your errors, but make me look.
We'll leave that one.
That's the whole interview. It's just me going, no, water, no. Okay, fuck, I'm stupid.
But the thing is, it relates the premise of the trick to a premise in the actual world, but it doesn't relate any of those two things to anything that anybody might have moderate interest in, right?
Yeah. Unless you're in a cooking class.
Right, unless you're teaching cooking.
And even then, it's like a weird cooking
It's barely
science class.
exactly.
It's like, no, for you to understand how this works, like, why wouldn't you?
Why don't you just show the oil and the water?
Yeah,
why do you have to
I don't
display
have
it
it.
with
I
a
don't
card
have it here right
trick?
now. So let's just use these cards. Like, that's the only time that, unless you see someone like Rene Lavon fucking kick your ass with an oil and water routine, because he makes the reds go higher than the blacks with one goddamn hand.
But that is, it doesn't relate to audiences any more than a routine.
It's just more impressive.
It's more impressive because he has one hand and he's Rene Lavon, but it's not.
But before we jump off that, that's where we're talking about with Eric Leclerc and Chris Ramsey. It's them.
No.
It's them, and that's what they've chosen to
Oh, I see what he's
represent
saying.
them.
I'm saying if you know, the kid who's been doing magic for 4 months at the magic store should be learning the stuff with the weird props to learn magic, not be learning flipstick as best as
I
he
don't
can.
think that's necessarily true.
But you have to find out what fits.
Of course.
If you
of
don't
course,
learn,
like, not
if you don't-
everyone can do impromptu magic or should do impromptu magic. Same as not everyone can do choreographed stage shows, right? Like, they're for different types of people, and there's no, like, right and there's no wrong.
But if you don't find that out, how are you going to know?
Yeah, like,
Right.
don't close off the door. There's there's young magicians being like for me, there was probably 4 years of my magic career where I was like, I will not do a trick if it involves a gaff card or some sticky shit or some anything. And that was just, I mean, it wasn't a waste of my time. Like, it was fun to sort of be stuck in that world. But as soon as I stepped out of it, I was like, what am I doing?
How many magicians in the 2000s were all worried about working material?
Yeah.
It has to work in the real world. Holy crap, man! You're not even working. You're hanging out. You're hanging out in the basement doing magic tricks for your friends.
Yeah.
Who cares? They know you do magic tricks, man. Go buy the thing you wanted to learn.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, you get to perform it. You learn that piece of magic, and then you can apply it to something else. So just to say that, you know what, I don't want to do this because like this doesn't fit or doesn't work, or to excuse all that seems weird to me in the sense, like, Chris and Eric are at a place in their careers where they just automatically know that's for them.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm still trying to figure half that out. I'm trying to see stuff that I like. I love coin magic. Coin magic was the first thing I got into. I was like, you know what? I want to learn all the hard stuff, all that kind of stuff. I was terrible, man. People were watching me trying to do Curtis Cam stuff in the first year of magic. It was brutal. Then I found out, oh, guess what? That's not what you're going to be doing. I still love it. I still like doing it. I still like trying to bust it out. But I found out that that's not James performing. Mm-hmm. That's James having fun.
Right.
And James performing still has to have fun, but it has to fit the whole criteria. And that takes time. That takes a lot out of people, which people don't have that time to do. So, you know, go learn that new trick from Jay Sankey, and learn exactly how he does it. Because guess what? Dude, you're just going to show it to your friends. Go do that.
Something very funny. People always ask me that, like, it's like, do you create your own effects? And I say, until I can come up with something better than the people that have been doing it for 30 years, no. And I'm honest with them. I say, like, you know, sometimes effects undergo some serious changes because they've gone through my hands, but none of this is original from the start me, because these people have been doing it for years before I have. They've tested it for thousands more audiences than I have. Who am I to draw a line in the sand and say, this is better? Mm-hmm. Who am I to do that? I can only decide if it's better because I've done both.
Well, my favorite example for that kind of stuff is like, so do you think Madonna writes every song she sings? What about Justin Timberlake or Justin Bieber?
Yeah.
Did you say
Dude.
Beaver?
I hope he did.
Yeah.
We'll play it back.
No, it's Beaver.
It's Beaver?
Yeah,
It's Justin Bieber.
I don't.
Beaver. I can't even say it. Justin Beaver. There
Justin
we go.
Bieber.
Yeah, but they don't write everything. They can't. This is impossible. We're in a weird section of theater arts where we not only have to be the actor, we also have to be the prop guy. We also have to be the
editor,
all this shit.
Script.
And you're expecting me to come up with a completely original trick to do? God damn it, man. Actors don't do that. They're given everything that they gotta go do and they knock it out of the park and we love them for it.
Yeah.
Even directors, like, I mean, one of the best shot movie ever, Avatar. As soon as it came out, everyone was complaining that we've all already heard that story with some episode of Star Trek and Pocahontas and three or four other tales that came.
I personally enjoyed the original version for Gully, but
Yeah.
but you're absolutely right. It wasn't a great example for me is the Monkey King. You guys are both giving me the glassy-eyed stare.
Yeah,
Perfect. The Monkey King is a Chinese story that has been around for centuries, as far as I understand. And every couple years they have this movie come back out again. It's the highest grossing movie in China. I think it's one of the top 10 in Asia. And it is replayed and retold over and over again. It's the same story. And it's retold all these different ways.
Mm-hmm.
A version of it that you guys might know. Dragon Ball.
No, the Monkey King. Dragon Ball. There you go.
Okay,
Done.
There it is.
But if you guys have watched Dragon Ball, I'm assuming you have.
Yeah, no, that was a real reaction. I wasn't.
Okay,
I wasn't doing it.
but that's the Monkey King.
Yeah.
They had there's an Asian one on Netflix that I'm trying to remember that uses that premise, and it has all these weird demons and all this kind of stuff, and that's essentially the monkey. They have the pig demon, and they have all this different stuff.
I know which Netflix show you're talking about.
Yeah,
It's been highly
something
recommended.
Journey to the West or something
Yeah.
along those lines. But that's the Monkey King story. In Asia, it is retold so many different times.
Mm-hmm.
But they still watch it. They still want to see it. So you get to be creative in this
Space.
Shell.
the shell. Thank
Yeah.
you. So to force everyone else, especially in North America, this seems to be a North American thing, I just bought this trick that I want to do. Well, damn it, you have to make that your own. Hold on a second. I can make this my own and still do it the same way I bought it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it going to look very similar? Yes. There's no doubt it's going to be similar. But if I put enough time and effort into it, I can make it look like me. And that's the real goal with every effect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like you said, I added magnets to this premise
Right.
or any of that kind of stuff. How many pros do Ambitious Card? Bill Malone, Michael Amar, David Williamson,
Yeah.
David Blaine. Like all these guys do the Ambitious Card.
Oh, sorry. Fighting a sneeze.
No
Okay.
problem.
Oh, that was intense. I like that idea of like this retelling of the Monkey King. South Park has a great episode where their whole Simpsons did it
Yep.
thing where they like can't come up with anything new, and that's part of our television and film culture. It's like I want to watch The Tortoise and the Hare told by the Simpsons writers. I want to watch it told by the so-and-so writers, you know, like, so why do we have to be afraid of our magic being a version of that? Like,
Because it's been thrown at us by our elders, quote unquote, of saying be original and all this kind of different stuff. And it's like, man.
And also the discrepancy between where we learn and where we perform.
Yeah.
Right? So we often, we'll get feedback from a performance, or we'll do a performance maybe for a magician, and they'll say something, I can't think of what it would be, that would reflect upon it being similar to
Oh
the
my
person
gosh,
who did it.
we do it so subconsciously.
Right,
oh,
right.
that reminds me of this trick.
Right.
Yeah.
But-
It's like,
But what lay people don't know it unless it had a billion views on YouTube or whatever, you know, like
Yeah.
it might be hard to do Brundage's Rubik's Cube routine. I know you bought it,
Yeah.
but they might say, didn't a guy do that with the paper bag on America's Got Talent? Okay, that's good. But any other routine, ambitious card? What person is going to say, oh, I saw someone do that. I saw someone do that trick. It's the same person that'll say, as soon as you pull up the cards, they go, oh, I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Because they think it's a card
now
trick.
to kind of go with your point on that, I actually had someone say that they've seen that trick where it comes to the top.
Mhm.
And they saw Sean Farquhar do his card, ambitious card to the top. And they're like, oh, this is so cool. I get to see it up close as opposed to on stage.
There you go.
They didn't give a shit that I was
No.
doing the same trick. They wanted to see that trick. It's like when you go to the theater and you found out that they're doing Glengarry Glen Ross. Man, I want to see it knocked out of the park. I don't care if that it's not Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
I don't care that it's like...
It's like the story I told earlier with my friend Miranda and the Bill to Lemon, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she got up on stage and she was rattled, not because she's seeing a trick she has seen before. She's rattled because she's experiencing something she's fantasized about her whole life. You know what I mean? She's
Exactly.
just like, well, this moment's crazy. I've seen this so many times, and it's happening to me now. Right?
I make it a point to try, even if I don't get hired to do pickpocketing, I still do pickpocketing.
Sometimes just on the subway.
No, performances.
Yeah.
I'm a theatrical pickpocket. I'll get my ass kicked on the subway. But I've had guys go, oh my god, Brain Games! Because Apollo's on Brain Games
Right.
stealing shit. Oh, what am I going to suddenly stop doing pickpocketing now because they saw it on TV?
Yeah.
No, they want to see it in person now. They're like,
Do it
You
more.
can do it?
Sell it. You know what I mean?
you can do this? Let's see it.
Yeah, that's a huge. That's a point I wanted to make. Like, there's been many gigs that I've heard of people getting because they can do a specific thing. Sometimes they can't even do the thing. They're like, can you fly? Can you? I saw a guy on TV. He ate a
levitate.
Coke can and then he flew and then the Coke can he cut out of his forearm. It was crazy. Can you do that? And it's like, yes, I can. Sure.
You're hired.
Why not?
Yeah.
I had a conversation with Aaron Fisher a little while back, and we were talking
Fishman?
about.
Oh, hang on a second. Sorry about that. You dropped that name there.
No, but the reason is because I don't know if he's shared this idea elsewhere, so I want to give him credit for it. But
Oh, okay.
we were watching someone do the egg bag, and I said to him, I was like, why does this trick kill? Like, why is this audience being slayed by this trick? It's so, and I'm not a sucker for new stuff, but I said, this is so old. They must have seen someone do it at a birthday party in their life. Like, why is this whipping them up? And he said to me, magic is more like folk music than it is pop music. More people want to see what they want to see, not what you want to see. And Lee said it to me as well very recently. He said, they're just better than wanting you to pull the rabbit out of the hat. It's just better than that. Just a little bit. It's not even a lot. Just a little bit more than them wanting you to pull the rabbit out of the hat. There's no need to make a fan to come up with something that's never been come up before and no one has ever visited this and
Not everyone
this is
has
your
that
own.
ability.
Yeah, but even more
Not
than
everyone's
that, like,
Danny Garcia or Chris Kenner.
but more than
or
that,
all
not
that
every
stuff.
audiences don't come to see
What new trick?
something that they've never thought of as magic before. It pits the worlds of magic and mind.
Yeah.
People, but they don't want to see it.
People
They
go
want
to-
to see the dove. They
magicians
want to
go
see
to
the bird.
collect conventions to see what you just described.
Exactly. And this is the conversation I had with Ben. Is I'm like, why do people want the bill in the lemon? Why do they want the bill in the lemon? And I asked my brother. I said, what's a more amazing place in the world that a bill could go.
We had a discussion earlier.
And
Can't
he looked
do it.
at me in the eyes and he said, I just want my money in a fruit. I just want my money in a fruit. And I tried, I pushed, I'd come up with stuff, and he would just go, put my money in the fruit. I want it in the fruit. Hey, if they want the money in the fruit, it's our job to put the money in the fruit. It's not our job to figure out a new clever way to do it. It's not our job to come up with the funniest fruit.
Here's a crazy thing for you.
Put it in the fruit.
The closest I've seen to almost that is someone destroying a bill and finding it in the joke of psychic surgery.
You talking about Brian Brushwood's
Yeah,
thing?
thank you.
Yeah.
Brian Brushwood doing his psychic surgery where he pulls the bill out of their gut. And even then, it's not as impressive because there's two ways to get in there without cracking them open. As gross as that is.
Yeah.
He either eats it
Yeah.
or it's inserted. Hopefully friendly. But it could get there.
Yeah.
But a lemon is grown on a tree. It was once a seed.
But no, to go the whole 9 with that, a lemon is a solid state
Right.
that can be easily accessed, but you have to crack it open.
Yeah.
It's the same with an egg or a walnut or even, to a lesser extent, a Christmas ornament. Because I've seen that done with that as well. But it's
less amazing than a lemon.
No, exactly. No, you can't beat fruit.
Yeah.
Because it's self-contained.
Yeah, it's natural. It's like, this is just a thing.
It's a shell that is unopened.
Yeah.
Anything could be in there.
Like naturally unopened.
Even a bill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
It's that whole joke of the mystery box.
Yeah.
It's like, do you want the boat or the mystery box? But the mystery box so alluring. Anything could be in there, even a boat. Right? Like the Family Guy joke.
Yeah.
But that's the same with a lemon. Like, we know what's inside a lemon. It's so impossible, but he's a magician. His job is to make the impossible possible. Oh my God, it's in there.
It's in the fruit.
It has to be in there.
Even Penn and Teller, who put, a cell phone in a fish?
Yeah.
In a fish, it's still not better.
Like I said,
Like, it's
there's
still
there's
not...
a way to get it in there.
Yeah, you can. There's a hole in a fish already.
There's a hole in a fish already. I can shove it in.
This is such a funny conversation. It's like, there's a hole in the fish already. It's not as amazing.
Because there's an entrance. There's
Yeah.
a, there's
No,
a,
I
It's
agree.
real,
I
it's
agree.
real.
But it's funny because it's a double conversation. One is sort of like how interesting it is that people just want to see the same thing. But the other is that it's sort of like a metaphor for magicians being like, I'm going to make the effect my own. I'm going to put it in an orange.
Yeah.
And it's like, you did not make the effect your own. Just put it in the fucking lemon. They want to see the lemon. You don't need to just make it orange and wider. That does not make it better. It's still citrus fruit. Do something else that's clever.
Well, like,
don't make this different.
the impossible bottles that have the Rubik's Cubes or
Yeah.
decks of cards in there. It still pales in comparison. Like, yeah, it's impossible for this thing to get in there. But clearly
But
you
it's
got
man-made.
Yeah.
And there's a hole.
It's like I've seen a ship in a bottle.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It's a known
not to
thing.
take anything away from it, because damn it, I want one on my.
I want one
on my
they're
desk.
cool as hell.
But it's not as magical as, like you said, putting my money in the
Put
fruit.
my money in the fruit.
Exactly.
Just put it in the fruit.
Just freak me out.
Just put the money in the fruit.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we can all think about, where there's like, creativity, and it happens to me all the time. I try to get creative, and I end up getting convoluted, and I end up getting wonky, and it ends up confusing what was once simple because I'm wrongly obsessed with parts of originality or coming up with
But
something
it's drilled into you.
Right.
From all your peers.
And
Yeah.
I'm saying that, like, the more that you realize that they want to see the bunny, they want to see the money in the fruit, they want to see, we know what they want to see you float, they want to see
That
you
happened to me
disappear.
last
That's what they
Tuesday.
want.
Well, here's a great
Like
example.
when people were like, "How did you know? They were like asking me how I did a thing at the newest trick."
Yeah.
And I just was like, I don't know. It was so surreal for me because I've seen someone do the effect that I did 10,000 times in my life, and I was like, what? It was just the same thing. I didn't even. I started smelling stuff instead of pretending to have psychic powers. Like, that was the only difference I had. Why was it so cool? And they're like, it was magic. What do you mean? I drew something and you knew it was mine. Like, that's crazy.
One of the, I would say probably one of the most prolific creators in magic for consulting and stuff like that is Ozzy Wind. Yet all the products that he's put out are not so original that you don't recognize them.
Right.
He's still doing Triumph. He's still doing
Akon.
any card at any number. It's just his take on it, and that's what makes it his own. That's what makes it amazing.
And we spoke to him on the episode about this, and his thought was that he doesn't want to. It was more on the level of releasing things, but he wanted to change an effect a certain amount before releasing it. But it also feels that, which is what we're vouching for, which is that you should change it because you feel the necessity for its change to suit you and modernness and whatever it is that you're changing to suit something, versus changing it for the sake of it being different and you having something to publish, or it being different and you being able to look presentable in front of magicians because you're using an orange instead of a lemon.
Well, not to plug my own crap, but the Necronomicon book trick that I do, the word appears on the person's arm. I wanted to make it my own, so I did little tweaks and changes and stuff like that. And I was like, this is really cool. I don't think I can publish this, though. Like, this is still very similar. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what do I want to change that makes this more mine? And it came up with, instead of it being one item, I apply the part of the trick with this item. And so I called Rich Ferguson up. I call him once a month because he never answered his phone. Sorry, Rich. But finally I got a hold of him. And I said, hey, I'm doing this trick. It's based off your tag trick. But I've done what I think is enough to make it my own. And I shared it with him. He goes, yeah, that's really good. That's different than what I was doing with it. So that was one of the things that I felt very proud of, is that I was like, no,
you get to go ahead from the guy who did it, and you...
Exactly. But it wasn't out of me wanting to publish a trick. It was out of me wanting to make this, solving a problem that I saw in it. And I think that's the originality part. This is the effect. Is, what do you see a problem with this effect?
Exactly.
How do you change that problem to suit you? Because without that, then, not to contradict ourselves, you're just doing the same trick.
Right. And there, I think it's okay to do someone else's trick with the plan to make it your own.
You have to. Oh my gosh.
Right? So that's the thing. So it's like, not necessarily varying things for the sake of varying, or like just changing because you think it should be changed, or changing something to suit you even though it doesn't even make sense or anything like that. You have to change it because you feel that it is necessary. You feel that it is what will make the effect better for you.
2 hours, but we did it.
I've only been here for an hour.
Right. We did it. It's like you can't perform a trick originally the first time. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's the whole thing, is don't not buy a trick because you don't have an original premise for it. Buy a trick because you like it, do it, make it yours, and make it just better for you than it already is.
Every
done.
Every
I can
person
leave, I'm tired.
every person has stood on the shoulders of giants anyway.
Yeah, I can speak English. That's it. There you go.
Yeah. So why not do that anyway?
Yeah.
Like, to go back to the point with the actors that are doing a play or whatever, it's like different actors do different pieces, same pieces differently because they're different. So I think you have a better chance of finding out what kind of performer you are than trying to make an original trick.
For sure.
Because that character or that premise that you're trying to achieve helps you create that originality.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, so you're a magician that does card tricks, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I am, but it's who's doing the card tricks that I'm interested in. Or I have to be made to be interested in. Because you don't get that choice of like, here, we're paying $20 to see the guy do card tricks.
Right.
No. Usually they're going to see a guy at a party or an event. And what makes it interesting is,
The person.
sadly, as cliche as it is to say that, it is the person. Because it is true. Like people, I'm only going by my own experience with this, but I don't know if you've ever had this happen when you're performing. But do you ever just start talking about something? You're not doing a trick. You're just talking about something you found interesting, and everyone's hanging off your words. Dude, you just found who you are.
Yeah.
That's you. You found you. They're listening to because they want to listen to you. So they don't care anymore about what trick you do. You can do the freaking thumb trick, where you pop your thumb off and say, "Oh, whatever." They all laugh and think it's corny, but you're showing you. That's why it works so well for Chris and Eric at the bar, rocking everybody out because they knew who they were and what they were doing.
And I think that also has a lot to do with it. Is not just who you are, but everything having to do with context, right? Like where you are. Were you hired to do this or not?
Yep.
Were you, like, what type of show is it? How big is the audience? What kind of audience it is? You know, like this, and this sort of hits on so many of the topics that we talked about today. But just like having context for everything that you do is the best way to start making it your own. Is by understanding where in the world it lies. You know, is it live the kind of thing that I might just do when at the random time, or is this the kind of thing that happens in the middle of my show that's usually for adults, this age to this age, at this kind of venue? You know, when does this sort of thing show up for me most often, and treating it that way? And I think that has a big effect on whether you're putting freaking money in fruit, or if you're doing something else creative, really paying attention to who the audience is, where you are, what you're doing, anything like that. I think are.
I think you're not wrong, but this was something that we sort of discussed a little earlier about doing stuff for your audiences versus doing stuff for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And we had that conversation with Aussie.
Yeah. Whereas, as a magician, if we want to consider this an art, you have to. Everyone talks about expanding boundaries and pushing boundaries and all this kind of stuff. Artists do things to shock and awe. Yet, magic doesn't shock and awe. Warm fuzzies, like we were talking about before. We aim for warm fuzzies. We don't want our audiences being worried that there is a person out there that can read our minds. Mm-hmm. But yet, magic's the only art that does that. Magic's the only art that worries about what their audiences are thinking, as opposed to performing something that to the best of their abilities and letting the audience figure it out on their own. You'd mentioned before about how Ben Train worries about what his audiences might think of what he's doing. But you can't control that. They're going to think what they want to think anyway. They're adults, most of them, unless you're doing kids shows. In that case, you're not really trying to expand the art. But if they're adults and they've come to see a performance art, not like at corporate gigs, not like you're at an art house, like you're doing a show.
Yeah.
You don't get to coddle them. You don't get to say, you know what? We're going to do a trick. It's going to be amazing, but don't worry. You'll be okay. Everything will be fine at the end. But it's supposed to be art. Art's supposed to unnerve you. Art is supposed to make you question your thoughts, make you question what you think is normal. Magic has this opportunity to make you question what's normal, yet we all take the safe route. I know I'm guilty of it. I do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to have a show where people are like, "Oh shoot. What? No, I don't understand." Like we get those, "That's amazing. I don't know how it's done." And that's that warm fuzzy moment, but
Yeah.
there's
a line I hear a lot of magicians say when they bring someone up is they're like, "Don't worry, it'll all be fun. You're safe. You can trust me." Da, da, da. And
yes.
I like the idea of like, you know, not having that safety net there for them. I mean, like you can still say stuff like that, I guess. But I mean, it would be kind of fun to be like, "You can trust me. Don't worry. You're safe." Or maybe you're not. Just do what I'm telling you because you have to. You're here now.
Well,
you know
I'm
what I mean?
a professional liar, so
Yeah.
take it as you will.
Yeah.
I was talking to Tyler about a show that I'm doing for a weird fiction and horror show. Doesn't have a happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's got a fantastic ending, but not a happy one.
yeah, but it's what I'm trying to achieve with that is not the superhero gets out again.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I think Darren Brown talked about that. It's like no one wants to watch a god do what gods do.
Right.
They want to see a hero struggle and achieve and win. But if that's all the hero does, then he's a god anyway. He just didn't know it. That's not that exciting either. But
Okay.
so if you don't fail, or you don't have these moments of like, oh crap, this didn't work, or this isn't going to be the happy end. Like, it can still be magical and not succeed, which is a rare thing.
Okay.
Magical things can happen, but you don't get your result at the end.
Oh yeah. No, I see what you're saying. Like the
Right?
journey to failure is a hell of an experience.
Yeah, and it can still be magical, and it can still have all these things happen. But no one really does that in magic.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to be the hero that wins. We all want to save the princess. Sorry for the stereotypical meme. I mean, I want my daughter to kill the dragon and be the princess that needs being saved. So, but those archetypes are what we always do. And it'd be nice to have a venue where we don't have to be that archetype.
You have it.
And we do now. We do now. But how many other arts already have that? And we're struggling
Right.
to get that?
Right.
It sucks. Like, how many places have you gone that you've seen people where they use blood as the art for painting?
Yeah.
How
yeah.
many, like, these weird variety acts, the carny shows? Like, man, people used to go to carnivals and sideshows for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you didn't get to see this stuff on the internet, like, before the PC crowd deemed it inappropriate to show to kids and stuff. But, like, you went to see that stuff to not feel happy.
Mm-hmm.
You went to see that, and in a sense, you kind of did. You were like, wow, I'm so lucky that that's not me.
I haven't seen Nick Wallace's seance show, but I've been trying to. This whole time you've been talking, I have been listening, but trying to come up with an example, and I just say it really fast.
Yeah.
That's a dark premise for a show. We're gonna summon some dead shit. Is it real? Is it not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Walk away from that. That's not me cutting myself. That's not me
Yeah.
failing to escape. That's magic really happening, but you're unsettled. You know?
And we don't do that enough in Magic. Finding the venues to do it, I think, is the biggest obstacle. So it's probably easier just to, do the corporate gig, do the walk around, and all the rest of it. But now that we have a venue in Toronto where we can do this, I think it's time to sort of try to do something other than watch me succeed.
For sure. I think I don't know. I'm having trouble seeing it outside of like, something in the sense of danger or evil, or like when I think of a card trick, like I don't think I would want to see someone not succeed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that it relates. But what I do think about what you're saying, which I think is totally true, is, and I think that this is a good place for magicians to reflect, isn't changing an effect or changing a method or a premise because you think it should be changed, but because you're seeking a result and not getting it, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is true change in everything. When you change, it's because you're seeking a result and not getting it. And it seems like the result that you're seeking and either not getting or trying to experiment with is this uncertainty. It's this people not knowing. It's this finality that isn't necessarily that standard, everything went the way that you thought it would sort of finality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a good bet for people to reflect. Instead of saying, where else can I put my pinky to make this work? Or instead of saying, he was talking about going back in time, I'm going to talk about this other weird thing. Instead, take it and look at the thing that's missing, and whether it's a method or it's part of the premise that doesn't work, or even if it's just people being left with an emotion that you did or didn't want. Sometimes they're just taking a different experience from it as a whole, and we can
and as an artist,
loosen that grip.
Well, yeah, to loosen that grip, I agree with, because as an artist or trying to make this an art, you don't get to change. You don't get to choose how your audience thinks of your medium.
Mm-hmm. I remember I always said in English class, I was like, who are we to be reading this book and deciding what Shakespeare thought? And I remember very vividly my teacher said to me, he wrote this, now it's out of his hands.
Yep.
It's now out of his hands. If we misinterpret the whole entire thing, that's just the way that it is. It's no longer us worried about what is actually happening. It's what we took from it.
Yeah.
And it's just as real as what he had intended.
I think I agree with that completely.
Yeah. That's sort of the point I think you're trying to make, right?
I think we've, in a roundabout way, in an interesting conversation, I think we've come to where I was trying to go with that is once you've put it out there, it's no longer yours to break down and say, this is what I really thought.
Right.
You now have to let your audiences decide. Mm-hmm. If they decide it's real, then unfortunately they think it's real. No matter how hard you try, they're going to still think it's real.
Yeah. You can give them the actual method and be like, this is what the trick looked like from behind. And they're like, but that's just a video you made to hide your witchery.
A great example for that is Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
I know the story. But
yeah, he told him, he said, I'm going to show you something that is amazing, but I'm telling you right now it's a trick. Showed him it, and Arthur Conan Doyle looked at it and said, well, clearly you're a wizard, like this is real magic. And Houdini was like, no, there's a method. You can do this too if you know the method. It's like, you're just telling me that.
Right.
So
it's
the same thing, man.
It's like the joke from Monty Python. He is the Messiah. No, I'm not the Messiah. And the guy goes, one who denies being the Messiah is the Messiah.
Yes,
and he goes,
exactly.
Okay, I am the Messiah. He is the Messiah. Right, exactly that.
Perfect.
So I realized that we didn't ask you how you got into magic. So very quickly ask you how you got into magic, and then we're going to give some words of final advice with people at home.
Okay, so
very quickly, how did you get into the whole thing?
Before I got into magic, I didn't get into it in the normal way that everyone talks about magicians getting into magic. Everyone says they got a magic kit or book and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't interested in magic at all at that age. I was learning to be a martial arts instructor, learning to run my own dojo, and I'm a second degree black belt in karate, a black belt in judo. In the year 2000, I was ranked second in Canada for amateur mixed martial arts. Then I blew my knee out. I had a lot of time on my hands. So I saw David Blaine perform his street magic special with Leonardo DiCaprio. Because after a week and a half of watching The Crocodile Hunter thinking I could wrestle crocodiles, maybe we should watch something else. So I saw David Blaine's special. I'm like, wow, I've always wanted to learn how to do magic tricks. So I learned. Had nothing else to do with my time. I couldn't go do martial arts because, I'm stuck in bed because I blew my knee out. And while that blown knee was supposed to be 6 to 8 weeks, I got 6 to 8 months because I got a blood clot. So I'm sitting at home
learning card tricks.
Learning magic tricks. And I remember watching the World's Greatest Magic, all that kind of stuff. and getting into the pickpocketing side because I found that so interesting. And what cemented that for me was my dad watching me watch a video of how to pickpockets, all that kind of stuff. My dad sat down and said, "You know, that used to be so much easier when I was a kid." Excuse me? Found out my dad used to pick pockets for fun in school.
Really?
I did not know this about my dad. My dad used to cheat at cards, hustle at pool, and pick pockets. Yeah. Didn't find that out until I got into Magic.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I talked about my dad. My dad's like, no, back in the 70s, people wore way different clothing. It was easier to get into pockets back then, all that kind of stuff. My dad, to this day, I still can't beat my dad at cards.
Really?
Cannot. And I've tried cheating. And my dad, you cannot beat my dad at euchre. Can't. He won't show me what he does, but I can't beat him.
Yeah.
He wins every time.
Well, there you go. That's a crazy story. I feel like there's so many
Great magicians that learn magic because of an injury.
Exactly.
That's the only thing. As soon as you told
it.
that story, I'm like, so if you're interested, don't know any card tricks, fucking go break your legs, and then...
Well, you find you have way more time.
Exactly. And we've heard a ton of stories of injuries and illnesses and things being an early spark to magic. So it's pretty interesting, pretty cool. And now we've of course arrived at the end of the episode where we go around and we take something from the episode that we think, maybe some nugget that we distilled for people at home, and then at the end I'll ask you for a word of wisdom. So for me, the nugget that I distilled, and I don't really know how, I mean, it was such an interesting conversation because it feels like we started in a lot of disagreement, and then as it ended we sort of wrapped up and being like, yeah, exactly that, yeah. So for me, I thought that wasn't the part. That was just me looking at it.
You lost your chance. Fuck you. Okay.
For me, I like the idea of changing your magic based on a desired result and not based on having a new method to be different, having a new premise, satisfying magicians, anything like that. Doing it to satisfy your needs, to solve your problems, to make the changes that you see are needed to make, and keeping to that as your reason to alter the knowledge of the giants whose shoulders we're standing on is a better bet as an approach to change these things than it is to just say, I'm going to change it so that it's no longer Vernon's and it's mine now. Mm-hmm. Because that makes you end up with a weird, clunky trick that doesn't make any sense and it shouldn't have been made in the first place. So I like the idea of chasing sort of emotions and things like that with your changing instead of the method itself.
I don't know that we talked about it so much.
But puppies.
But I'm just, really into dogs. And
fuck puppies. Cats all the way.
And that's what we'll end it. Okay, I was very big on disclaimers in the beginning of this conversation, and now I really like the idea of letting your audience just sit in whatever the hell they're sitting in, and not using words of like, this isn't real as a way to cut off those doors, but if you want to cut those doors off, work that into your method. You know what I mean? Let it be like they don't have to have every possible thing open, because then they're going to find a solution and stick with it, right? But I like the idea of being like, I'm not really going to tell you what I'm doing, what's going on, what's happening here, or maybe I will, but you can't trust me and you know that now, or you know what I mean? Like, I just love that ambiguity to magic, because that's a feeling that, you know, I don't really have anymore. When I watch a trick, I'm like, oh, that was a cool idea. It was a cool variation of so-and-so, right? And I just love that idea of like, was there a ring in that lemon? What was any of it? Was she a stooge? Was this? Like, I love that idea of being like, this is my performance, have at it, goodbye, walking off stage and being a different person. You know, like, it no longer reflects you. And so you're, that's it, yeah. Okay. James?
I'm going to steal the first part that you threw away, with the fact that we came at this at two different premises, and I think that through discussion, not saying I'm right, you're wrong, or just let me throw my valid points and let me listen to your valid points and let's see where we can meet in the middle, is where I think that all discussions are at its best.
For sure.
And I think Magic needs that way more often.
Discourse and Magic
Hence the
podcast, 2
podcast.
full days of material. So, they've heard us talk about all of these fun ideas having to do with effects and shows and stuff like that. They've heard us distill some nuggets, but there's still millions of magicians at home waiting for a nugget of advice. Anything to tell them, not necessarily having to do with this, just either a word of warning, advice, something for the future, something they should all
You have
know.
a cybernetic
Whether it's
microphone
good, whether
in your
it's
face.
bad, whatever it is, what do you want to tell them? All the magicians of the world.
Learn to be bad. Learn to
Go steal some shit.
No, not bad as in like being a bad person. I just mean buskers have the street where they can perform and do shitty tricks until they get good. As magicians, we always have to succeed, so don't be scared. Like as a pickpocket, I don't get the luxury of having 100% hit rate. I will get caught. I steal someone's watch, and they know that I'm taking that off their wrist. They're being polite. They're not going to say anything until it comes off their wrist. But I have to still go through the motions because if I don't, it's going to fall on the floor.
Right.
But because I have to know that there's like this weird higher percent rate that I'm going to get caught, I learn not to care about it as much. And that allows me to get away with it more often. So there's this sense of like, as a magician, you always have to be right, otherwise you suck. But if you're not wrong every once in a while, those rights become mundane. So if you're wrong, like with mentalism, throwing a wrong in there, like, oh, I missed it, just amplifies the other stuff way more.
Right. Yeah. Watching a guy fail his stunt makes such a big effect on how you feel when the stunt is successful.
Yeah. So it's those lows that allow the highs to be that much higher.
Absolutely, and I think that is a great piece of advice. That, like you said, magicians not starting off, but as magicians, get on stage, like they have this need to be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
They have this need to be great, but comedians, even the best comedians in the world, they go on open mic nights and they bail night after night after night to hone great material.
Mm-hmm.
Actors, they line up in rooms full of hundreds of people that look just like them to hope for a 40-second spot on a commercial. Magicians, they go on the Magic Cafe 24 hours before the performance. They go, does anybody have a good close-up trick that I can do? Because I'm really, really hoping that I can do this because I got a show tomorrow and it's really good. So I think that's good advice. Find the space to fail and it will make those successes so much better. James, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Absolutely.
Really
It was an awesome conversation. I really enjoyed it. And of course, big thank you for entering the contest, winning the contest, and making it here. And for you guys at home,
We have another contest.
we do have another contest, and you will have heard about it in the intro and outro of this episode. But now you know they're for real. We're not liars. You can actually win them. So you should enter because there's some cool stuff in it for you.
Peace.
There you go. Hope you like it. We'll see you all on episode
45?
45.
Oh, thank God. All
Cats
right.
versus dogs.
Cats versus dogs. Yeah. Well, there you have it. Episode 44 of Discourse in Magic with our very awesome fan guest and, of course, good friend, James Harrison. I hope you took something awesome from that episode. We, of course, had a great time recording it. This is a reminder to you to go to discourseinmagic.com/masterpiece. We're running a 7-day masterpiece challenge. What that means is for 7 days, starting February 15th, you're going to get an email to help turn an effect you do into a masterpiece. So if you're listening to this anytime before February 15th, please go to discourseinmagic.com/masterpiece and sign up. It's completely and totally free. And on the start of February 15th, you're going to get an email from us. And every day from then on, for the next 7 days,
we're going to help you turn an effect that you do into a masterpiece. Things like scripting, timing, recording yourself, ideas, things like that. We're going to streamline it over 7 days to make it happen fast. So there you go. I hope you liked the episode, and we will see you next Thursday and on discourseinmagic.com/masterpiece. Later.